Son of a remarkable woman who traveled the world helping people as part of Doctors Without Borders. Son of a retired Air Marshal who himself flew 40 different types of aircraft with over 4,000 flying hours to his credit. Wing Commander Abhinandan is the superhero who chased out Pakistani jets that wanted to target our military and even shot down a high-flying F-16 jet of Pakistan while he himself was in a MiG-21 Bison. A feat by itself on many levels. Tonight, our brave soldier, the hero, is back home. And before we get you more details, here is his story.
Taken hostage by Pakistan while he was safeguarding Indian skies, 34-year-old Abhinandan Varthaman, Wing Commander in the Indian Air Force, finally walked free on Friday. An alumnus of the National Defence Academy Kharakwasla, Abhinandan also trained at the IAF centres in Bathinda and Halwara. First commissioned as a fighter pilot in 2004, he's been guarding our skies for 16 years. Starting off on the Sukhoi 30 fighter, Abhinandan was soon promoted and assigned the MiG-21 Bison squadron. Hailing from Tirupanamur village in Tamil Nadu, Abhinandan comes from a long line of brave hearts. His grandfather, Simakutti, had served the nation during World War II in the Air Force, while his father, Air Marshal S. Varthaman, is a decorated officer who retired after serving as the Eastern Air Command Chief. Abhimanyu's mother, Dr. Shobha Varthaman, has served in some of the worst conflict zones around the world. His brother too serves in the Indian Air Force. Wing Commander Varthaman is married to Tanvi Marwa, who is a retired IAF squadron leader, and has 2 children. The proud lineage evident in his conduct in the toughest of times, when Abhinandan put his country's honor first. As he walked across the attari-wagah border into his family's arms, the entire country gathered to give him a hero's welcome. Bureau Report, Mirror Now.
Let's say good evening to Leela Parappa, former diplomat and Deputy NSA, Colonel Amitabh, defense expert, joining us this evening, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, former Deputy Chief of Staff at Maruf Azad, Strategic Affairs expert and also consulting editor to our network. And I have with me in our studios, Vinay Tiwari. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. Maruf, let me come to you first. Those visuals of our hero walking back with his head held high, and really that's the visual we had been waiting for the entire day. It took 60 hours since he was in that jet that shot down the F-16. What's your own sense of how this entire situation was handled by our government?
See, our government has obviously not fallen into the trap of either public opinion or social media pressure by either standing up and expressing gratitude or using Wing Commander Abhinandan's return back to India as part of an extended bargaining ploy, which some people were suggesting, or maybe Pakistan had kind of suggested in its own way. But I think there are several things that come to my mind immediately. One is that as Wing Commander Abhinandan's pedigree has just been highlighted, people like him will walk straight under any circumstances. And more so at this point of time when the eyes of the nation are on him, I'm sure he would have got the whiff of the public opinion and the sympathy that has gone out in his favor. But people like him do their job. They don't look for kudos. They don't look for sympathy. Having said that, I think his particular act of gallantry, of knocking off a Pakistani F-16, and then his conduct thereafter is a lesson to be learned for all military officers in particular and everybody else, that how an Indian should behave under duress and even injured stand his own ground. So I think as a citizen, he has sent out many messages. I'm sure the Air Force will put him up for a high decoration, and he deserves it. The other aspect is that, you see, Pakistan was using both his capture to extract enormous publicity out of it and deflect attention from where they had been caught completely sleeping with our air raids. For Pakistan's military, this was extremely important as a kind of message back to their people that we are worth the money that we juice you for. But more importantly, I think we have given Pakistan an exit window with this situation to maybe feel reasonably self-congratulatory that they have probably come back onto the equal playing ground with us. But that's not the case. In real terms, this is a question that has often been asked in the last day or two. Where do we go from here? Our situation, our battle against terrorism continues. We have to use every opportunity that comes to our way, not only to exploit Pakistan's terror linkages, but also let it be known the window has now been opened by this decision to use airstrikes. It can be done again, could be done again and again. And Pakistan stands vulnerable. All the arguments of their strategic experts that they can match us conventionally, actually, because they could never match us conventionally, they jumped the gun from using terrorism to using the nuclear threat and thought the conventional dimension will never come to play in between. But we have taken the narrative back. We must continue to dominate the narrative and not, unfortunately, do what India has done for 30 years, have had a reactive foreign policy. And that has been the shaming of this nation. And that has been the reason why world capitals tell us that you punch below your weight. You come to us to ask them to call them a terror state, but you are shy to call them a terror state. It is your battle. You want to be big boy. You have to box it out and fight it out yourself. And I think Abhinandan has shown the way to us. The armed forces has. My salute to the Indian Air Force for having done this country proud. And my salute to the armed forces for showing the muscle that this country has. This put to rest any question that people ask that should we need to arm, equip, or do more for our armed forces and our soldiers, our veterans, and those who are killed and missing in action. This country needs to do a whole lot more than just pass messages on social media.
Absolutely. In fact, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, coming to you on this aspect and what Maroof is saying, what should be our way forward from here on? We've shown that we have the capability to take out the terror targets, even if it means going inside the territory of another country. We will do it now. Should we continue with this strategy?
Absolutely. But firstly, let me tell you, this is a moment of happiness and pride. Our tiger, our professional, our icon, somebody in whom the youth of this country can see. He is a real hero who is emerged today. He is the one who has shown the highest standard of professionalism. He has shown a conduct in custody which is of a very high order, and he is a man of substance. I think his example will be quoted in the military history hereafter. In fact, here is the hero which India has got. But coming proper to your question, hereafter the track should not and will not change. I think what has been spelled on 26th February is a marked change in our resolve, our will, our intention. It has shown to us that in case we have to take a hard option, we must be on it. In fact, let me be clear about it that we have a clear aim. Aim is the terror, proxy war, and the spin what Pakistan Army, ISI and terrorist groups have given to religion into jihadi extremism and fundamentalism. This is a challenge which is there, and we have taken it head on. Now there is no chance of wavering from this track. In fact, I think the challenge in front of the nation today is that how can we channelize, how can we get in and ensure that we have a continuum of this narrative. we should not slip back to being reactive. I think the culture of work should emerge to be culture of action, culture of proactivity. In fact, the nation needs it. I think our nation needs to have a change of perceptions. This nation should stop being reactive and soft options and having reasons of how not to do a thing and all. I think the culture of action should emerge. In fact, today, the entire country has got to take a cue from this pride. You saw when he walked from at 9:21 in the night, when he walked across, could you feel a tiger walking? Can you see a pride in him? I think kudos, and I'm hugely proud of his parents.
Yes.
I'm hugely proud of his wife. In fact, he actually conveys what Indian civilization, what is Indian culture, and what is Indian history. In him, I see what has been the message of Lord Shiva,
Yes.
Shivji Maharaj, Rana Pratap, and Guru Gobind Singh.
I understand
you
your
can see in his
sentiment,
eyes
General.
the way he walked.
I understand your sentiment, and I think that what Wing Commander Abhinandan showed today really personified every soldier that we have in our military, in our armed forces, and this is the sentiment, and this is the nerves of steel really that our soldiers have and display, and rightly so. But that's the military aspect of it, of how we should go forward. Leela Punappa, come in here on the diplomatic aspect. Obviously, as after the strike that India carried out and Pakistan that displayed a bit of adventurism, things escalated very quickly between the two nations. There was a lot of tension, and many big nations then tried to intervene. US and Russia and China and UK, everybody also called for, a bit of a breather and de-escalation. Do you think that even though we've built the diplomatic support to get our man back and to pressurize Pakistan, if we had to go ahead and carry out more such strikes, it will be a diplomatic challenge?
Any security situation, which is what we face from Pakistan, requires the combination of all our national capabilities. Certainly the military, security, intelligence, diplomatic, economic, and political, both externally and within the country. So it's really a combination of these forces that demonstrate the national will. At any time, in peacetime or in war, diplomacy plays the role in terms of trying to bridge the gap. Sometimes it's a question of an easy relationship with the country. With Pakistan, it has always been a challenge. I think going forward, I would like to make just 4 brief points. One, there has to be great clarity with regard to the reality of Pakistan, the nature of the Pakistan state, the nature of their compulsive hostility towards India, driven largely by the deep state, which includes the military establishment, as well as elements of their political structures. I think there is goodwill among certain sections of Pakistan society, but the dominant role is that of the military. And we should never have any illusions about it, regardless of however many elections they hold. This was true of Imran Khan, it was true of Benazir Bhutto, it was true of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, it was true of Gilani when he was Prime Minister. Secondly, we must have clarity with regard to our own objectives. Today is a moment that we all take satisfaction in, that Wing Commander Abhinandan is safely back, hopefully in good health, but we will need to get the background in terms of exactly what has happened over the coming days. Let us wait for that. But our objective, the bigger picture, is that the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan remains. The episode of the Wing Commander shooting down an F-16, being captured in POK, and now his safe return has sort of taken the eye off the ball with regard to terrorism. So on the one hand, you have the continuation of the terrorist infrastructure. On the other hand, you have Imran Khan as Prime Minister and the whole Pakistani establishment inviting India for talks, seeking legitimacy while sponsoring terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy. Now, that truly is the challenge. While we might get support from the international community in terms of pressure on Pakistan and so on, do note that many of the comments called for restraint by both India and Pakistan. Some countries named Pakistan for its support of terrorism, but otherwise there was a call for constraint. We should be clear, this is a situation we have to deal with on our own. As a matter of fact, when we deal with it, we do not just ourselves, and I dare say even Pakistan, a favor, but we are doing a favor to the rest of the international community, because terrorism is a global phenomenon. And I'm pretty sure that quietly within different governments, they were glad that India walked the talk.
Yes, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, to what extent will they back us if we do this more? Because at the end of the day, one strike is not going to be enough, like you said, to dismantle the terror infrastructure.
They may or may not back us.
Yes.
They may or may not back us. And it would be a mistake to look for that. The point is that we have to take care of our national interests, and here specifically our national security.
Correct.
And that is indivisible. It really has to prevail in terms of how India acts. If others are happy to join us, so much the better. But if they don't, let's be clear that we might have to act alone.
Yes. Well, even on this aspect, Vinay, in this specific episode, would we call this a diplomatic victory for us, or is it that Pakistan didn't really have a choice once they had him and the videos came out that they had to return him, or is it because we worked the channels properly, especially now in the light of what happened in the last 6 hours, where we had doubts and concerns of what was going on, why was there a delay, but he's come out and he's walked straight up, and it doesn't look like Pakistan really got anything out of it.
Yes, and unquestionably, this was a diplomatic as well as a military victory for sure. But I think we would be making a mistake if we assume that this is some sort of a 2020 match that we won. This is a very long-drawn test match series that has to go on for a long, long time. I have been a little concerned sometimes about the continuity of policy very often, and I think it's now necessary that we maintain a continuity. And this continuity is not just vis-a-vis Pakistan, but vis-a-vis how we are dealing with certain situations and elements even within Kashmir, because there is an oxygen supply that comes into that state, and there is one feeds the other, and this consistency is required. The good thing is that this time the government has shown the resolve and the courage in breaking a Lakshman Rekha, self-appointed Lakshman Rekha, which was not breached even under very, very grave provocation like 26/11 or even the parliament attack. But this time it has, and that has set a new paradigm. But this is the start. This is not the end of a T20 match where we won it and we can all go back and feel very chuffed about it. I think this is a long-drawn thing, and it has to be consistently done so that the message cannot be misunderstood no matter who sits in that seat, the puppet seat in Pakistan, whether it's Imran today or somebody else tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. Colonel Arnab, do you agree on that? And what is your own view on what should be India's next step?
Firstly, I'd like to go to your previous question in which you asked that if we carry out these strikes again, would there be a opposition? As long as there is a justification to carry out a strike, there will be no opposition. And the way we have reacted, it was a grave provocation and we had to react. And we identified a target which was away from the civil collateral damage. There was no collateral damage. It was on a terror target. And as long as these targets and this kind of provocation is there, we will have the support of the international community, let there be no doubt on it. Coming on to what is the way forward from here. Now, this is a long drawn war, and Pakistan has invested a very long time, resources and all its strategic energy in continuing with this asymmetric war. And it is not likely to die down in a short time. We have to be prepared for a prolonged war. We have to have consistency in our policy, and whether this government, that government, there has to be consistency amongst the political class, the opposition and the ruling party, so that once we have adopted a policy against Pakistan, against the terrorists, there is no wavering from it. What concerns me here more is the fact that while Indian Army and their armed forces will always deliver, the Army has been delivering for the past 30 years, the Air Force did it, and if you tell Navy, they will also do any task that is assigned to them. That is not the question. We will continue, but we have our limitations. We can only bring down the level of violence to a limit where the political activity has to start. What concerns me most is the fact that while the violence and the terrorists and the number of terrorists in the valley have gone down substantially, the alienation is as good now, back to the levels when the insurgency or when the terrorism had started in the early 90s. Something needs to be done. Otherwise, till the time there's a political process put into place to ensure that whatever actions or whatever success the Indian armed forces achieve, we are going to continue this war for ages, even next generation, a generation after that. So let us, it has to be a combined effort. The synergy has to be there, and in all, it has to be all round, the diplomatic, the economic, the political, it has to be a synergy in all departments to ensure that the success of the armed forces is exploited and we are closer to a solution, and finally we have a peace in Kashmir.
Yes, absolutely. Let's also say good evening to Air Marshal V. Naren joining us on this broadcast. Air Marshal, before we get moving ahead on the conversation of what next and what are India's options, a few words from you on the kind of bravery displayed by Wing Commander Abhinandan, his grit, his commitment, even as he walked back. We understand that his first words upon his return were, "I am happy to be back in my country."
Quite right. He has conducted himself in an exemplary manner. But from what I heard from the previous speaker, he had some general remarks to make about how the situation is to be handled. There I might say that we have to adopt a policy of minimum use of force and maximum reconciliation. These two are very important, and unless reconciliation takes place, we will never have peace.
Right. So that's your view. Colonel Amitabh, do you want to respond to that?
No, I agree. The force that we apply has to be measured.
Yes.
And it should not be excessive. It's a very delicate balance that we have to maintain while ensuring that the terrorists are neutralized. We have to ensure that there's no damage there's no casualty to the civilians. And I'd just like to take you to the press conference with the 15 Corps Commander had given on 17th, I think, where he said that we suffered the casualties that we did in Kulgam because we wanted to ensure that there is no collateral damage. The civilians are not hurt, and that is why we took all the precautions. Had we not taken those precautions, probably those lives wouldn't have been lost. We still would have neutralized those terrorists. So this is how the Indian Army is, as it is operating. We just have to ensure that it is, as they say, iron fist in a velvet glove. Policy has to be maintained.
Air Marshal Naren, what would your suggestion be? What would your advice be as the next step forward? The fact of the matter is, while Wing Commander Abhinandan is back, the bigger problem is not going away. The terrorists who are being trained across the border, they're still there. Pakistan doesn't seem to be changing its ways. Even as we speak, it's spreading about this. Again, another propaganda video that has been made of the Wing Commander, and that's been released by the Pakistani authorities. So it doesn't look like Pakistan is in a mood to change at all. Air Marshal Naren, that question was to you, sir.
Oh, I heard you. Yes, I fully agree with you. The thing is, I think we must recognize that Pakistan is a kind of schizophrenic state. It was, you might call it a J and H state, Jekyll and Hyde state. And we have to make sure that we encourage the more sane elements in Pakistani power structure. Having said that, we also have to make sure that we are adequately prepared and adequately alert to avoid incidents of the Pulwama kind. I think it is hardly anyone will dispute that the Pulwama incident was an intelligence failure. Some would perhaps call it that a higher degree of intelligence than others. But the fact is that it was an intelligence failure. We have to avoid incidents of that nature. If that had not happened, the train of events that followed would also have been avoided. So we have to maintain our strength, keep our powder dry, and I am not very sort of convinced that it's only a question of minimizing collateral damage. We have no option but to carry the minds and hearts of the people of Kashmir with us. And therefore, we have to take all measures within reason to do that. And one is that we have to be strong, we have to be impartial, and we have to deal with the situation as it arises without any fear or favor of any kind. If that is so, then the populace will follow us. We will be convinced that we are for them.
Right.
At the moment, that conviction seems to be lacking. And it is our responsibility to make sure that that conviction returns.
Right, absolutely. In fact, before we go further in this conversation, there's one other aspect that I wanted to address, and which is this fresh video, Vinay, that Pakistan has released. And obviously, we are not going to carry it or, further their propaganda in any way. But just to give a sense to our viewers, the kind of, and perhaps this is why they even got delayed, because they were sitting with him and shooting this and editing it, and there are at least 20 cuts in that entire sequence. Yes. The point of that video is to say, oh, he was searching for a target, our army saved him, and our Air Force treated him well, and also that Indian media lies a lot and exaggerates a lot. That's essentially what that video is. How do you see that? Is that a cheap attempt to just cater to your local audience, or is that Pakistan trying to say something to the rest of the world?
So look, the fact that they have shot a video like this, which they did with the Jadav's case as well, and they released it, timed it very strategically, and the fact that they chose to release it just 10 minutes before he was crossing over the border, you know, it shows up that nation is a churlish, immature, underconfident, a very, you know, like how street level bhais operate, that kind of mindset. This is not the way mature nations behave. I mean, on paper they are a democracy, and I'm saying on paper because technically Imran Khan was elected in an election. God knows what kind of election it was. But the fact is, it's a very churlish nation. And even then, even the video they will come out with, even the Prime Minister's own video has cuts.
Yes.
The address that Imran Khan made also had cuts in it. So there is somebody who actually sits and does a very bad edited job of even the Prime Minister's video. It is a reflection of a mindset. I mean, for me, the fact that all these videos are propaganda and nothing else, the fact that they do those kind of things is a very immature, unsure, uncertain, and very unpredictable kind of a nation. And this is hardly something that you expect from some country which is pretending to be an important part of this South-Asian region. I mean, this is very juvenile, in my opinion.
Yeah. But Pakistan is obviously trying in whatever way they can to make noise about it. In fact, there is a news report today that says that they have moved to UN accusing India of eco-terrorism, saying that the strikes that India carried out just simply destroyed their forests. Leela Pulappa, what's your own view? When they try these kind of stunts, how does the rest of the world view it? Are they taken seriously? You know, if they make these propaganda videos which are edited to say, oh, and here is an Indian officer who's saying Pakistani Army and Air Force is great and Indian media is not.
Pakistan is obviously trying to milk every advantage it can get from essentially what was a tactical move to try to get sort of one-time approbation for what they were doing without in any way changing their policy. I don't believe Pakistan has much credibility internationally, and I do believe that there are enough people who are able to make a balanced assessment of Pakistan trying to garner propaganda advantage without actually being a responsible state. But I would like to make two other points. One is with regard to the need for us not to send mixed signals, which is something that has been happening over decades under different governments, including this one. So in the past as well, you know, after Mumbai, we took no action. 26/11, the strikes that took place last month really should have happened 11 years ago after the Mumbai attacks. We play cricket with them, we do other things, there's a great deal of bhai-bandi, and then suddenly we realize that these are the people who are sending terrorists across the border and creating havoc. So there should be no mixed signals, at least at the bilateral level, in terms of how India views Pakistan. We have our objectives, we want stability and peace in the region. If Pakistan can find it in itself to do so, well and good. If India's interests are hurt, India will and must act. I think that political resolve is required across the board without politicization of the matter. The other thing is Maruf's first point with regard to the role of the armed forces. You know, I think India is an under-defended country, by which I mean that our armed forces do not get what they need in time to develop and to maintain the capabilities that are required for a country the size of India. It goes back to a tradition of guns versus butter, economists saying that, well, if you go for the guns, you're not going to get the butter. But if you study any major developed country today, you would find that advances in technology, in economic growth, in meeting the needs of the population are all linked with suitable advances with regard to defense as well. A country India's size has to be able to defend itself. This impinges on the extent of our arms imports and really on the attitudes to the defense. Today, it's wonderful, everybody is lauding the armed forces, but at a later stage, you get pot shots taken at the army for doing various things. AFSPA is there so that the army can come to the aid of state governments when state governments fail. It is not the business of the armies to defend the country. So I think we need as a nation to come together on this and to view national security as an ongoing issue for which all of us have equal responsibility, and not as an afterthought or just when an event like this occurs. Going forward with Pakistan, no illusions, no mixed signals. Carry on business where you can carry on. Communicate with the international community in terms of the realities of Pakistan. Coming back to terrorism, it is now recognized it's a global problem. A terrorist should have no place to hide.
Yes.
If the terrorist is hiding in Pakistan, then that establishment has to be taken out. I think this is the message of what has happened in the past few days, and in between, the fact that the wing commander is back safely in India is a matter of satisfaction. Let us not go for triumphalism, but let us get down to really seriously addressing these questions in a sustained and a consistent manner.
Yes, in fact, that's two of our panelists now saying that we need consistency in our policy, diplomatically speaking, on a global level, and also the way we deal with the situation in Kashmir. General Singh, do you believe that a part of the problem for Kashmir also is that we don't have a consistent policy, between the varying state governments and central governments? We've gone back and forth, and we've often not even, gone back and forth on policies of military presence on and the extent of freedom that can be given to the military.
Ma'am, you asked a very good question. I have been in the valley for 10 years and I was the corps commander there in Srinagar. We've been managing the security situation in Kashmir, but what we need is the Kashmir solution. We need to have a narrative which is clear what we want. For last 30 years, Pakistan has anchored the proxy war. We have lived with the eras of strategic restraint. It is just February 26th that we have launched the strategic response. And I personally feel it is a time that we have got strategic opportunity with us. Let's understand one thing very clearly, that Pakistan is the center of gravity of this proxy war which has been done. Unfortunately, they've taken the track of terror as a tool, proxy war as a strategy, and conceptually they've taken extremism and fundamentalism. And they've been carrying on this path for too long. In fact, their methodology of conduct has been lies, propaganda, bluff and all. In fact, I'm very proud of the fact that all elements of power have come together at this moment. If you study this February 26 to today,
yes,
you will understand everybody has contributed. This is a time when diplomacy, security forces, media has come together. My credit goes to the government. My credit goes to the Prime Minister for shaping the environment. In fact, what we need to learn at this moment is that we must ensure that we go on this track. And I must clarify one point. Since I have been in the valley and I've been for 10 years, I have been there. Let me put it very clearly that the common innocent civilian, what we call Awam, is the center of gravity of counter-terrorism.
Yes.
Indian Army is a professional army. We are apolitical, we are secular. And let me tell you one thing. Instructions to everybody there has been that ensure that you work on your professionalism. Ensure that the privation of civilians is not disturbed at all. Let me be very clear. In the end, we want governance, administration, employment and education.
Correct.
Like it was brought out, we have the challenge of radicalization, and I personally feel we must take it head on. We must target the solution.
Yes.
We have managed the security situation many a times, but it is a time to take hard options, and we need to, like the wind of changes, the culture of action which has come in now, we got to be clear what do we want as a nation, and let's put it to action. And I'm proud of all the elements of power which have worked together. What has emerged is the jointness and oneness of our approach.
Absolutely.
I think this journey from 26 February till today is a great study by itself.
Yes.
How Pakistan has been isolated, cornered, and look at the even today in the Organization of Islamic Countries. I think diplomacy has worked wonders.
Yes.
When
in fact,
IOC was founded,
you're
Pakistan
absolutely right there,
was a
General.
key member, and today they have been dropped.
You're absolutely right there, General.
They've been dropped.
In fact, that was also a unprecedented thing. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but we are running out of time here, and so I have to interrupt you. Of course, the story doesn't end here. We are all glad tonight and that he is back. Wing Commander Abhinandan is back with us, and I'm glad about that. But of course, the bigger battle there. No, my apologies to all of our panelists. I wish we had more time. But of course, the conversation on how to deal with Pakistan will continue. What does India do next? That will continue. The focus right now is that Wing Commander Abhinandan has returned. He's undergone a medical test. That is the protocol once you return from the custody of another country, and that has happened. He will now be flown to the national capital. And we've spoken about him. We've spoken about his achievements. We've told you about his father and his father's achievements. I think it's also a time to recognize the contribution of his family. The family who has gone through the toughest of the times in the last 60 hours since their son's jet went missing, and then he was in Pak's custody. Here is a small report about Wing Commander Abhinandan's mother, Shobha Varthaman. She's a doctor by profession, and this is her story. While the whole nation celebrates the much-awaited return of brave Wing Commander Abhinandan, it is his family that is experiencing a wave of pride and relief like never before. But it is not just the soldier who has brought immense pride to the country. Wing Commander Abhinandan's mother is no less of a hero who has dedicated her life to a larger good. Dr. Shobha Varthaman went to Royal College of Surgeons of England and specialized in anesthesiology. After her education, she volunteered to provide free services as a member of Doctors Without Borders, a vocation that took her to some of the world's most dangerous conflict zones. She had several successes, like in Nigeria, where she helped set up a blood bank and an intensive care unit. She also faced danger during the Second Gulf War, where she almost got killed in a suicide bomb blast. But this setback did not stop her. In Iran, she taught patients pranayam and set up 3 major projects that dealt with surgery, aiding sexual violence survivors and HIV patients. Dr. Shobha worked in Haiti too after the devastating earthquake. Despite her professional commitments, she also ensured that she was with her husband, a senior IAF officer, when he undertook a diplomatic mission in Paris. Dr. Shobha Varthaman's sons have followed in their parents' footsteps. Both are proud officers of the Indian Air Force. This unsung hero is not just an asset to the country, but the entire world. Bureau Report, Mirror Now. These are the real stories of people who serve our nation, the real heroes of our nation. And these are the people that we need to keep in mind, we need to take care of. Thank you so much for joining us on this debate.